There can be no
There
doubt
can be no
that the
doubt
transportation
that the
sector is
transportation
the
sector
most critical
is the
sector of our
most
economy.
critical sector of our economy.
Transportation accounts for
Transportation
60% or
accounts
more
for
of
60%
the
or
total
more
logistic
of the total
costs
logistic
each year.
costs each year.
This means that
This
more money
means that
spent
more
on
money spent on
transportation than is
transportation
spent in warehousing,
than is spent in
distribution center
warehousing,
expenses,
distribution center
inventory
expenses,
management, and
inventory
order
management,
processing
and
combined.
processing combined.
Beyond just the financial
Beyond just the
figures,
financial figures,
transportation
transportation
is
is
the
the
function
function
that
that
connects
connects
all
all
of your
the
company's
partners of
supply
your
chain.
company's supply chain.
Partners who are
Distanced by time
and
and
location.
location.
Transportation
Transportation
moves
moves
the
the
goods
goods
from
from
one
one
organization
organization to another,
right up to the end
right up to
customer.
the end customer.
We're all
We're all
familiar
familiar
with
with
the
the
primary
primary
methods
methods
of
or modes of
transportation:
transportation:
truck,
truck,
air,
rail,
water,
water,
and pipeline.
and pipeline.
And each of these
And
has
each
its
of
place
these
in the
has its
effective
place in
movement of
effective
goods.
movement of goods.
Truck carriers,
Truck carriers, for example,
are usually at
at both ends of the transportation journey.
The first to pick
The
up
first
the
to
goods,
pick up the goods
and the last to
and
drop
the
them
last
off.
to drop them off.
Clearly,
It takes a good system of roads and highways to support an effective truck
That is
transport.
why we see
That is why we see such
being
effort being put into building roads in
countries
developing countries
and
and
maintaining
roads in
countries.
developed countries.
Controlling costs
Controlling costs
another very
is another
important
very important
consideration
consideration
for
for
truck
truck
fleets
fleets
and
and
transportation
transportation companies.
There is a clear
There is
benefit
clear
in
benefit in operating full truckloads
country,
around the country
rather than less
than truckloads.
Of course, for
Local delivery, we use small package carriers like the very familiar UPS trucks.
Because of the
Because of the door-to-door requirement of most deliveries, and just about all goods spend some time on a truck.
So it is important to
recognize that the trucking industry is constantly challenged with rising fuel
driver
costs,
shortages,
driver shortages, and intense competition
motor
among
carriers.
motor carriers.
When I have a lot of stuff
When I have a lot of
move
stuff to move a long distance, say across the country, for example,
I
we look at railroads for the answer.
Raw
Materials and low-priced products are good examples of things that are usually transported by rail.
And of course,
And of
that
course, that
usually
is done in large quantities.
So raw materials
moving from one end of the country to another are good candidates.
As are goods
shipped in from China and destined for distribution centers in Chicago or Dallas. We've all seen stacks of new cars moving from assembly plant to the dealer along the railroad.
The U.S.
has a very complex network of railroad lines. Railroad companies
work
that work together to service the entire country.
However, there are limits to these
and rail transportation. Rail lines have very specific routes,
routes,
so they're not very flexible in comparison to trucks.
also quite slow.
They're also quite
When I
slow.
want speed,
When I want
I
speed, I
usually
usually
think
think
of
of
air
air transportation.
but I also think
But I also think of expensive here.
e-commerce and
E-commerce and global sourcing and the desire for faster delivery have all contributed to a steady annual increase in the use of transportation in the U.S.
Prime
Prime candidates for air shipment or products and components that are low weight and high value,
like
like electronic devices and computer chips.
Air
Air transportation is provided by air cargo carriers
who
only handle packages and freight,
and common
carriers who fly both
freight
and passengers.
Water
Water transportation is the key enabler of global
Most goods
move internationally on ocean
But I
carriers.
also want to consider
But we also want to consider barges and ships that navigate shores and rivers.
and in the Great Lakes in the
and in the Great Lakes in the United States.
World trade is dominated
World
by
trade
container
is
ships.
dominated by container ships, tankers and cargo ships.
This is your low
This is your low-cost transportation method.
But of course,
it's also the slowest of your choices.
We round off our
discussion of transportation modes with the pipeline.
Believe it or not,
Pipelines provide the lowest cost per unit of all the transportation modes. The U.S. has the largest network of pipelines in the world.
Of course,
pipelines are fixed in place.
And they have special
uses like moving crude oil or natural gas, for instance.
It is important
to understand each of these methods of transportation
because most goods
use more than one method when moving from their origin to their destination.
This is called
intermodal transportation.
Let's
Let's look at a company like Walmart as an example. Walmart might order a large volume of bathroom towels from China
to be sold in
its retail stores throughout the Midwestern U.S.
Several
trucks will pick up the towels from the factory in China, or possibly several factories are needed to fill this order.
The trucks
will drive to the port of Shanghai. For example, the boxes and towels are loaded into a shipping container, which is then loaded into onto the container
Once
ship.
the ship reaches
Once the ship reaches the port of Los Angeles, the container is now loaded onto a rail car
and is
and is transported to the rail station in Chicago. Once
there,
there,
the
the container is lifted off the rail car and placed on the trailer of a truck to be driven to a regional distribution center.
After the container is
unloaded, additional trucks will deliver pallets and boxes
to smaller
towels to
distribution
smaller
centers,
distribution
or directly
centers,
to Walmart
or
stores.
directly to Walmart stores.
How that is a lot of movement.
How that is a lot of movement. Because trucks are the only way to deliver door to door. Almost all goods have an intermodal transportation experience. So,
What's your
what does your transportation network look like?
Really good way
To find out
is
is to pick up one specific product and trace its transportation routes back to the original source of all materials.
Many
Many electronic companies and all pharmaceutical companies routinely do this. Once you understand this big picture of you may find some really good opportunities to dig a little deeper
for ways to increase
your efficiency and possibly decrease your costs. Because transportation is such a huge part of logistic function,
it is
well worth the time.